Hey there, I'm David Lesmes, and you are listening to a podcast that showcases the powerful stories of extraordinary Latinos impacting the world and leaving their mark on the global stage. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you to UPRISE Latino. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of UPRISE Latino. Today, I have perhaps one of the most exciting and amazing guests that I have the chance to invite into this space. Is a dear friend of mine and a person that I admire a lot. So welcome to the space, Eirene.
Hello, Lesmith. Thank you for having me here. It's such an honor. It's the first time I've been, it's my first time in a podcast, so I'm kind of nervous. But okay, we will get along with it. My name is Eirene, as Lesmes just introduced me. I'm a fashion designer, but I have a master in fashion and textile, so I have both worlds, not just the design, but the textiles universe too. Right now, I'm living in Madrid, Spain, and I have lived in already 3 countries, starting from my hometown country, that is Colombia. Then I moved to Turkey for 2 years in total. First time was just 6 months. And then I did an exchange for 9 months. So in total, let's say 2 years. It was one of my greatest experience, and what really motivated me to move forward, to keep exploring the textiles world, the cultural world around the design and the textiles. So then I came back to Colombia. Then I did a short term in Rotterdam in Holland. Then I came back, and then I moved back to Europe to do my master degree in fashion and textiles in Milan. It was one of course, my greatest experience to live the real Italian know-how of fashion. And after living there for 2 years for my master degree, with I did it very successful. I came to live in Madrid, and is where I'm like established and growing my life and my family.
Amazing. That's a great introduction. But from my perspective, Irene, beside of all these experiences that she has and this amazing journey that she has, she's also a
Yeah.
founder of a really interesting company that we are both representing, if I'm not mistaken, today.
Yeah, you're right. Well, my brand is, I think, the conclusion all of this journey that I have lived before being here. So that's why I always start my introduction with where telling a little bit about of all these countries that have received me during all these years, because all of these places had taught me a lot of the importance of the cultural heritage in textile. And with this is the creation of my very own brand that is called Eiina brand. Is a Colombian brand, born in Colombia but established in Madrid. So let's say Colombo Spanish brand, that aim to preserve and protect the Colombian textile heritage of indigenous and peasant cultures of my country. So we produce um, non-trendable pieces, let's say it like this, of bags and wearing clothes that really represents the different heritage textiles techniques of each of the communities that we collaborate with.
And today I'm wearing, if I'm not mistaken, I'm the first.
The first man having an Eiina piece, yeah, because we mostly design for women. But Les was so in love with our cardigan that I did one. I say I because we did some little changes, focusing a little bit more into a man structure. But yes, Les is the first man who ordered a red cardigan from our brand. So I love how it looks on you.
I'm really proud, and I'm actually really proud to be the first male person to have this brand, not just because of the brand. I love the concept, I love the piece in on itself, but it also represents for me, on one side, a connection with you as my friend, but on the other side is also a connection with the country that I come from, and the
Yeah.
things that I take with me when I go abroad. Okay, I think that was a good introduction. We know your journey. We know that you're an entrepreneur. We know that you have a brand that represents different things. But I want to then go deeper on that. So you say that Eina represents different textile traditions from the communities in Colombia. Could you expand a
Yeah.
bit more on that? What does that mean?
We are a brand. I say it as we because it's a brand that I built with first my mom, that is not longer here, and my husband. We built this brand with the purpose of protecting all of this real ancestral heritage, textile heritage that have been forgotten during decades. Because something and then put this, and the purpose was to put these ancient traditions or techniques into very modern and contemporary fashion pieces. So this is a brand, Eina brand, and the main focus is also, as I just said, to bring back this ancient textiles tradition. What's the main point? Because what I have found during all this journey is that the textiles traditions that we tourists, I can say even tourists in our own country, Colombians, we buy as tradition are not real traditions, are modern textiles techniques that have been developed in the last 10 to 20 years that are faster in the production and so cheaper for the artisans to produce and cheaper to sell. So the real ancient traditions have been forgotten from the roots. Let's say that in each community, I can just find 2 to 3 artisans that I still remind how is the technique. So it has been a real big challenge because, of course, this makes our production very slow. We cannot really get compromised with huge productions and fast productions, as what we want is to keep the real know-how and the slow and well done way of doing things as it used to be. And with this we pay what is ethically deserved. Because also one of the other of the problems that we saw is that as artisans mainly, I hate to say this, but they live in the real thin, really like in a thin line of poverty. They kind of give their products for granted. They don't really ask for the money that they deserve. So with this, what we do is bring back the ancient traditions, give them value, and pay back to the artisans the deserved price.
That's super interesting, and that's something that I don't know. Like I use this cardigan. I don't use it every day. I use it actually for special occasions. So if I have like I don't know, like for example now a Christmas dinner, or I have for example in my last birthday I was wearing it. Also because I I think that the concept of slow fashion is also related to that, and is
Yeah.
this piece for me represents something that has a path, that has a reasoning, that represents a community, and I think that that's very nice. Like uh, for me as a Colombian living abroad, to wear something like this is not just about that it looks good and it looks great, but also to represent that kind of traditions that perhaps we have lost in some way.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of nostalgia, let's say, that we like to. There's something. Well, you can talk about it better, but I think we're in a part of our human history in where we're just already missing what we have lost or what we have left behind. So this nostalgia, yeah, is what makes us feel this way. Like the need of having a piece that tells a story, that if someone asks you like, oh, I love your cardigan, where is it from, and you can say it's from an indigenous or a peasant community, as is your case. It's from a peasant community, is from I know, a crochet of a woman, a group of a group of women that do crochet.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, you have something to say, and we're just tired of meaningless things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are looking back to how things how it used to be before. Like we're trying to go back to the roots and be able to wear things with a reason, and buy things with a reason and with a story, and that's part of the things that we also have found along this journey.
Definitely. Something interesting for me, Aiden, I think that I never asked you this, or perhaps yes, like we've been friends since 2015 or 14. It's
Yeah,
been a long journey for us. But you mentioned that your brand it was created in Colombia, but it established itself in Madrid.
yeah.
Why? And how was that decision, and how that journey has happened?
It was actually not a decision. Just
Okay.
life brought me here.
Okay.
And I say me because Mirko, that is my husband, and that is my partner in this project. He was already living here.
Mm.
But as I said before, my first supporter was my mother.
Yeah.
And during this period when I was living in Colombia, I was doing my thesis research that was with the Waju indigenous ethnic group. I was living with them. I was living into Colombia. I was doing all my research with them and their traditional textiles. And during this time is when this idea arose, and we thought like, okay, if the indigenous are forgetting their traditions, maybe many other cultural groups in Colombia are forgetting their traditions too. So this was the question that makes us thought like, okay, let's make a larger research and find out if this is something that is happening just with the Guayu people or with other Colombian ethnic and peasants group. So this was like the first time that we ask ourselves, like, maybe we should do it. Let's look more. So then we start the research. Of course, we find out that many other communities, not just at the north of Colombia, where the Waju located, but other regions like at the center of Colombia with the people from Boyacá, or from the south, people from Putumayo, indigenous people from Putumayo were also having this kind of uh, leaving behind
Mm.
problem of their tradition. Yeah, leaving behind, I don't know how to say it, but like this sense of eh, not giving a lot of relevance to their tradition
Mm.
problem.
Mm.
So this was our first step with Eiina. We first started as a NGO. I just saw myself as a researcher. I just wanted to do research. I just wanted to live with peasants, with artisans, with indigenous. I just wanted to live there. I remember these days as my happiest days. I really thought I could live the rest of my life just doing research. Actually, I just got really into the topics of ethnography, anthropology. I really loved all these topics around textiles, but as the heritage. And then my mother one day she said like, if you're doing this way and you want to support them with money, because I was always asking money, always
Mm.
to my parents, to my husband. I was like, oh, they have this problem. Can you please support me? Of course, I was a student. I didn't have money from my own. So I was always asking money to my parents, to my husband. They were always supporting me, giving me donations. But then my mother was like, "You're always asking money. You love design. You're a designer, not researcher. Let's say it like this. Why don't we do a brand?" And my husband was like, "Yes, let's buy many of the things that you have already done with them." So this was Eina. Eina, that means weaving in Waju language.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Uh, and this was the first start of Eina. So let's say that I was in Colombia.
Mm.
And by the time my mother passed away, it was one of my worst moments. And life changed when this kind of things hit, and was so hard for me that it makes me think, let's say, bigger.
Mm.
Before, it was just like an idea that just born with my mother, like something, you say like, oh yeah, good idea. But then it was like, I want this to be my next step. So I started to work a lot, building all the brand, all the logo, all the like value proposition and stuff. And then, like 6 months or 9 months later, my husband proposed me, and we decided to move together to Madrid, where he was already living. So I came to live in Madrid, and I brought my brand with me. But I that's why when people ask me, it's a Colombian brand, I cannot say. I can say it's a Colombo Spanish brand because
Mm.
maybe the first idea arose with what I was living in Colombia, but Eina kept growing with what I was living day by day, seeing day by day on the streets of Madrid. So for me, it's very hard to say it's a Colombian brand, it's a Spanish brand. No, I think it's a Colombo Spanish brand, as it was, because it was not what I was planning for, but the life brought me this way, and that's
That's really
why
beautiful.
it has a little bit of both countries.
Definitely. That's I never heard this story before, like in this
No,
complex. Like I feel that we have talked several times across these years, like when we meet in different points, but we never had the time of like sitting and actually. I never had the opportunity of actually sitting with you and listening how the idea was created, how you ended up in Spain with this amazing dude that we all of your friends we appreciate a lot because he takes care of
thank
you.
you.
But
Yeah, it was destiny, I think.
I also think so. I
It
also
was
think so.
not planned,
I
not
also
very
think so. I want to come back to one thing, and is okay. So your brand moved to Spain,
yeah.
and it became this kind of a fusion, but it still has a real essence rooted on the women communities of
Yeah,
Colombia. And you are a Colombian woman,
very
so
Colombian woman.
very Colombian woman. So what is the perception of the people? Like Madrid has a lot of Latin Americans for sure. It's one of the places where there is a big concentration. But what was the perception of the people when you started like developing the brand in Madrid, and how it was different from when you were in Colombia?
Well, I have many answers to this,
Go for it.
because I think we can say it from many different points. The first thing, of course, uh, Madrid is a melting pot. We always talk with my husband, who's German. We always talk that Madrid is kind of a little Manhattan, where
Mhm.
you can find people from all around the world. But still, Madrid is very Madrid. Madrid is a city that, compared to all of the other cities of Spain, it's very classical,
Mm,
but at the same time very contemporary.
okay.
So it's hard to define, but they have their ideas very clear on what it goes and what it doesn't go.
Okay.
What's different from New York, that is a city where everything goes.
Yeah.
You can see an Indian next to a Chinese person next to a Latin American, and everybody live together, and there is no like a fashion. You can say the fashion is that the mixture of many cultures, right? In Madrid, no. In Madrid, I can say we have a Madrid identity, very, very strong. And so it's interesting because even if it's a melting pot, they have a very strong identity, and they, as being a melting pot, they really admire who comes from abroad. So it's a city that welcomes you, and as a Colombian brand, they are always amazed. They are like, oh, Colombia. They are actually very amazed. They have been very amazed the last years with the Latin American fashion. They really appreciate it a lot, even if they don't use it as their daily base. They maybe don't use a very Latin American dress, because later on we can talk about the iconography of the Latinas or the Latin American fashion. Maybe they don't use our big colorful, full printed dresses to the office, but they use it for a wedding, and they love how they feel with it. So I think that's what's magical about Madrid, that you are in a country, and in a city where they admire and they value this.
Okay.
They keep their identity, but they are open to know and recognize our other identity.
So I think that perhaps the people from Madrid perceive the clothing or Eiina in the same way that I perceive it in some way. And yes, I see it for the special occasions that, as you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between how people perceive Eiina or similar brands in Colombia when they are in Colombia as when people perceive it from other places?
It's hard questions.
That's why we're here.
It's a difficult question, because I think a difference between how an Spanish people perceive Eiina or a Colombian brand, or
let's talk with Eiina.
Okay, Eiina. Well, the thing is that our things, even if they are very attractive, because we have a lot of fans in Madrid. We have a lot of Spanish fans of the brand that are buying very often. Eiina is a brand that has high prices, because it's a slow fashion brand. We cannot sustain ourselves selling pieces for 30 euros. We can sustain our artisans and our work with a price of 200 or 300 euros. So you don't buy these pieces daily. You buy them because you recognize the work, you recognize the value and the effort of the artisan, and you recognize that it's a heritage piece that you can buy and then inherit it to your daughter or granddaughter or whatever. So I think people who buy now, this is what they buy. They buy story, they buy heritage, and they buy uniqueness. So sometimes this is about Spanish people who I know they buy Eiina because of these reasons, because I talked to them closely. What is different with people from Colombia who buy Eiina is because they like it.
Okay.
Colombian people who live in Colombia buy them because they like it. I know there's also another percentage of people who buy them because it's heritage and they value. But I can say that most of the people buy it because they like it. Of course, Spanish people buy it because they like it, but also because they see an extra value on this. Sometimes in Colombia, we have something, and I can say not just Colombia, any other country of the world. When you have something there, it's like you feel that it's always there. You know, you can buy it now, you can buy it later. But when you are outside of this like offer, big offer, that is what's happening with Eiina outside of Colombia. People buy it because it's unique. So they have other reasons.
Okay, okay, interesting.
Sometimes,
I think that I relate a bit with both, you know, because on one side I like it visually, especially I live in Sweden, as you know, and here the fashion is a big thing here also, but it's pretty standard, pretty set, and I like it visually, but I also I understand the work that there is behind it, and when people ask me, I just don't say like, yeah, I like this, but I try to tell the story, so I get it.
yeah,
You mentioned something that that maybe for the people that are listening to us is not like a common term, and it was the
yeah.
iconography of Latin America. But what do you mean by that, and how it's reflected in Eina?
Something that I have found while living abroad during all these years is that each country has their own language. And this language is referred on the non-written language. Let's say
Okay.
colors, patterns, textures, materials, things that can just be found, yes, that can just be found in their own lands and places. So our Latin American iconography is what we see every day. So what is what we see? We see the jungle, we see the colors, we see the very like I know like cheerful flowers and the look of the colorful feathers of our birds, and we have this very folkloric way of moving and living through life, and this is what makes us transform all this universe into colors, patterns, very heavy silhouettes, very uh, like how to say it, but like extravagance or
Yeah,
like extra
extravagant.
bold way
Yeah,
of wearing things that is never
yeah,
enough. So you always see a lot, you recognize a Latin American or a Colombian walking because we have the big earrings with the big bracelets with the big necklace on top of the big dress that can be pink, fuchsia, purple, orange, and it's like this is Colombia, and this is
yeah,
what we are, and this is our iconography. And if you give a look to what is the Caribbean chic, what is the Latinx, what is the tropical chic that we have been recognized as during these last 10 years, let's say, is this the fringes, the big sleeves, the chunky skirts, the little hip or waistline, I'm sorry, and the big hips.
mm, mm.
So we tend to take all of this what we see in our daily day to the design, because this is art,
Okay.
this is fashion. Fashion is
Mm.
social, it's something social. People think that fashion is something, it's a vanity that we just dress for an occasion, and it's not like, no, you dress because you want to say something,
Yeah,
you want
I
to communicate yourself through these.
exactly. I heard recently something that there is a guy at the office. Uh, he dressed super well. Um, he's from Sweden, but he dressed really really well. And I'm the kind of guy, unfortunately, that one day, and you know me, one day I can go with
I know, but
suit and tie
yeah,
and looking like a gem.
yeah,
The other day I can go in sweatpants.
no, no, I'm this
Um,
person too.
yeah, but he thought like he is consistent,
Yeah, I admire
and
these people.
he told me I dress to express,
Yeah,
and I was like, I never
100%.
thought of that.
100%. Sometimes, well, sometimes again we can go back to anthropology and the story of humans.
Mm,
And the first time that we talk about dress, it was when a human used an ornament. And an
okay.
ornament was a piece that represented if the person was a warrior, if it
Mm,
was a girl, if it was a girl ready to get married, or if it was a married woman, or if it was a girl in her period ready to conceive, like, and you see all these patterns in a convergent evolution along all of the cultures of the human history. We have used ornaments to tell the rest of the people of our community, like, hey, I'm ready to get married. Hey, I'm the one who is going to be pregnant very soon because I'm already a woman. Hey, I'm the warrior who killed 3 lions. We started using ornaments to say, hey, I'm someone. And still today we use our clothes to say, hey, I'm this person.
Okay.
So when you
And
choose what to wear, what you're choosing is how you want people to see you. Because I'm sure we all know how we see ourselves. But every day that we step in front of our closet and we choose, I want to wear this cardigan, I want to use this goldy color shoes, it's because you have a purpose. And we all have a purpose when we dress. Even the person that, even you and me, that we say we have these days that we can go in flip-flops, we want to say something.
yeah,
And we want to say
that's
that we're
true.
a relaxed, natural person.
That's true.
That's what we want to say. So the dress has a language, and we as Latin Americans, we have a language that is this iconography that represent our big jungle. We live in
Hmm.
a big jungle that is the tropics. Even if people like us, that we are from the highest point of the mountain, they call the center of the country. They call the center of the country, that is Bogota. Still, we represent ourselves with textures from this area, colors from this area that are still very colorful, and still people from La Paz, that is even cooler than Bogota, they represent themselves with a lot of colors because it's what we see in our day to day. So we
Okay.
we like we convert this vision into material culture, that this is a concept. Material culture, material culture is the representation of the culture that we all have, and it's an
Okay.
ethnography concept.
I want to, sorry to interrupt you, but I want to come back to the point of Madrid and Eina. And is okay, we have all this iconography, and now we understand a bit more what is iconography and how it's represented and how also it represents us. But you have Madrid, that, as you mentioned, it has its own identity,
Yeah.
is a city that has certain characteristics quite unique to them. Do you see, or do you see that as a challenge? How was
If it
the
was
story
a
of
good.
Eina growing up there? Did you find difficulties finding that right balance? How is your experience in that mixture of worlds?
It was really hard, I can say, because I came with my first collection that was a collection inspired on my mother, that who was a woman. It was like literally Dancing Queen from ABBA.
Mm,
When you listen this song, it, the person who they are describing is, it was my mother. So imagine my mother is a very colorful, cheerful woman. She was dancing all over. So my way of converting these ideas into colors was making a very colorful, heavy, very, very heavy collection. So I arrived here with my ruanas, that is a big poncho, traditional poncho. They were so huge, so huge. They were pink, orange with big fringes,
I remember.
thick
Yeah.
textures. And of course, Spanish people were like, every time they see it, they were like, wow. They were first amazed. They were like,
Mm,
oh, wow, so beautiful. But how can I use it? It just
mm,
looks good on you. It was always the same phrase, like, que mono. That means like, oh, how cute. But how can I use it? It was always the same answer, and was kind of weird because my I was always coming back home telling Mirko, like my husband, like, I don't understand. I don't know if they like it or not. They always say it's cute, but I cannot wear it. And
mm.
you as a brand, you cannot design something that you just you and your mother will wear.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to be sustainable because everybody talk about sustainability as an ecological decision, but now sustainability is to be able to design, produce, and sell what you produced.
Yeah,
So I'm not sustainable if I design and I work with indigenous and I work with slow fashion, but still I have 10 ponchos in my closet. This is
mm,
not sustainable.
true.
So I was like, what can I do? So I started to really going out on the streets, sitting myself, hours, taking coffee, going into shops, talking to people. I was doing a great cool hunting, researching in the way that I was always going to dinners, but with my alert like this. And every time someone was like, oh, I bought this jacket, and I was like, why did you buy it? What did you like from this jacket? What did you see in that jacket? What's the price of the jacket? Why did you pay that jacket? I was always doing this research when at the same time that I was living.
That's really you. That's really you.
So
Like in any social interaction, you are the person asking the questions. Like I love it.
like I can say that this part of my personality is what made Eina keep floating,
Yeah, yeah,
because I was like, if I'm here, I need to survive with them.
yeah.
And it doesn't mean change myself. No, but let's do something that we both like. And at the beginning, it was very hard because as I first said, I'm very Colombian. My personality is very Colombian. I'm the happiest person, at the same time, the most explosive person.
True.
And I think I represent this in how I dress. I don't really think a lot if these all go together. I just think like I want to these things to go together. And this is how I dress day by day. Not because the
Mm,
things work. It's because I want to use them. And I
okay.
think this is something very Colombian from my personality. But they were like, I was super attached to Colombia. I remember talking to my husband who's German and he speaks very great Spanish, very excellent Spanish. And I was telling him like I never, ever will speak like Spanish people. I will forever speak like Colombian. I will forever dress like Colombian. Like I was so attached to these things. And at the same time, he was telling me this kind of thoughts is what makes you get so attached that you cannot see what they are asking to us as a brand.
Yeah.
So because of this, it was that I started to say, okay, let's start buying fashion brand. So I stopped buying Zara. I haven't
Mm,
been into a Zara store since 2021 for the only reason that I started to say if I'm going to buy clothes, I'm going to buy Spanish clothes because I need to understand what they're buying. I need to understand my customer. I want to understand what do they feel when they buy something. I want to be in their shoes. I want to put their hats on me.
mm,
So it was a long process that now it sounds like, oh no, this day I woke up and I said
yes.
like, okay, let's evolve. But no, even if I had already lived in Turkey, was a
Mm,
country completely different to Europe, then in Milan, that was a country completely different to Colombia, and now in Spain, still I was so attached to Colombia that I wasn't ready to leave Colombia behind. But what I didn't know it was that I was not leaving Colombia behind. But in conclusion, what happened was that I realized that the way of keeping my culture was not getting attached to these little things as of I dress like this, I speak like this, I act like this, but my real values, and those values are what I said before, is my way I express myself, the way I take decisions, the way I still feel the clothes, that is in a very intense way, and still I can give myself the permission to get to learn really deep about my new culture, that's my new house. So with this, I can say that, of course, I'm not a Spanish person. I'm a Colombian person who live in Spain. With this, I say I respect Spanish people. I respect Spanish fashion. I actually love it like crazy. I now I value so many things that I think if I wouldn't have given myself the chance, I wouldn't have learned. That is, of course, the tailor. Even if Milan is good in tailoring, Spanish is really good in tailoring because even young people use tailored clothes. So I gave my chance of learning from other culture and bring these things that work with them for them, and bring it to Eiina to make Eiina better and to make Eiina evolve into this new way of seeing the world between Colombia and Spain. Actually, our new slogan is heritage. Heritage is this that we all have in common.
Ah,
We all have heritage. We all have a culture that we inherit. We just have to evolve toward this and evolve toward a new language, because I think we are as like, we're just not Madrid is a big melting pot. We are a melting pot. We are just you. Thinking about when you were living in Canada, then now that you're living in Sweden, then before that, when you were living in Colombia, you're a melting pot as a person. I am a melting pot as a person. My husband, who's German, has lived in England and Australia and Spain. He's a melting pot as a person. And he still says, I'm German. But I have learned so many things from Australian people, from Spanish people, and things that have made him a better person, or a better version of himself. I think we have to detach a little bit ourselves of these ideas of I'm Colombian because I eat arepa, ajiaco, maíz. No, you're Colombian. You're Colombian because of biggest things than this.
yeah,
So when you realize this, you are ready to evolve, and I think this is what happens when with Eiina.
yeah.
That is a brand that has half a half.
Thank you for this master class of how to take in a Latin American business into other markets.
Yeah,
That was really impressive.
I took my brand to other markets without even realizing it. I thought the hardest thing was to learn how to do the shipping, or how to deal with taxes. And now, dude, the hardest thing is this: get to know the people that you're pretending to sell to sell your products to. If you don't know them, if you're not part of them, it's very hard. Sometimes I ask myself, how do brands that just ship their products and enter to a new store, how do they sell? If they don't know the people, if they don't know how they talk, if they don't know their needs.
Yeah.
I think the difference between art and design is that art is something that it comes from within and you just express, but design needs to respond to a necessity. So if you're not answering to a necessity, you're just making, I'm sorry the word, but junk clothes.
And even art, I will argue from my point of view, and perhaps from my ignorance, that art is also an answer of the place where you are, of the context
and
that you
the
want to
period
transmit.
when it's going on.
100%.
So
And I wanted.
You cannot think yourself as a god or goddess that just create.
Yeah. That is contextual for sure. I wanted to relate it maybe with a silly story, and there is a restaurant in Stockholm, and maybe you can relate to this with the experiences that you had in Milan and in Turkey. There is a Colombian restaurant that I always go. In Stockholm.
Okay.
There is like 3 Colombian restaurants.
Okay.
But there is one that I love. They have really good beans.
Wow.
They have amazing soups. Exactly. But always when I go, it's empty. is really empty, like in the day to day. And one day when I was thinking about the podcast, I went once to the restaurant, and I was thinking, why people don't come here? Why people don't come here? Like, food is great, but people don't come here. And I think that is related to what you were saying. A lot of people that open businesses in Europe, they expect that the perception of the people is going to completely change to adapt to our flavors, to the amount of food that we also have. And there is other really successful business that I've seen, even here in Stockholm, that manage that delicate fusion of like Nordic flavors that are really different to our Amazonas, Andean,
Cocoa
Caribbean.
Pacific flavors that are
Exactly.
so strong and so good.
And I think that that's something that is perhaps something that we don't think when we start new businesses in other places. We believe that the other person needs to adopt our entire setup.
And the other people that the other people have to adjust themselves to our way of being or our way of building our business. And it's again what Mirko said me, like how we pretend to sell the product if the person perception is different to what you plan to transmit. I don't know if
I get you.
Clear. You have to take both what you want to say and then the response back. Otherwise, you're just talking alone.
I get you.
And this is very dangerous for a business, because you have to be sustainable. You have to sell.
Yeah, and
Otherwise,
I think that
it won't last.
And I think that not just for businesses but for life.
Yeah.
Like
I
really
wanted
proud.
to go to this point also.
Exactly. I'm really proud of, you know, that I'm really proud of my Latino heritage and the place that I come from.
But it doesn't mean that you cannot have Swedish friends.
Or even in food. So like, just to tell you a little story, I was cooking for my girlfriend, and I was like, I want to make something Colombian, but she's French, so there is like certain tastes from Colombian food that she don't like, and I was like, okay, I will make an arepa with brie and with caramelized onions.
Yeah,
and then
I get
I
it.
just mixed it here and there, and she liked it. And like, maybe when I made her the first time, like the arepa with meat and with beans and like cheese and plantain, she was a bit like, hey. But when you find that sweet spot, that is also part of evolving yourself as a person.
Agree. Actually, I had the same experience with Mirko, my husband. I remember my first fight, it was arepas, because my very favorite Colombian dish is arepas.
Good.
Any arepa, boyacense, any arepa. I just love arepas. And I remember the first time I came to visit him, I made arepas by myself. And he was like, okay, he tried them. Of course, he had already eaten them in Colombia, but of course, mine were plain, just a corn flour and butter, and maybe not even cheese, I think, this time. So he was like, okay, what are we going to eat them with? And I was like, with guacamole that I did. And he was like, can I bring ketchup? And I was like, ketchup?
Sacrilegious.
O sea, ketchup. No. Ketchup. For me, it was an offense. And I was like, are you crazy? Ketchup? And then I understood. And he said, like, for me, this is so dry. I mean, even bread is more like, I don't know how to say it, but like juicy.
Yeah.
Than a plain arepa. I cannot eat it like this. Then next time he did for himself atún. He smashed atún with guacamole, and he started to put atún with guacamole on top, and he was like this, I like it.
Yeah.
And it was like, he was not telling me I don't like arepas. Just, I cannot eat arepas, plain arepas. And sometimes for us as Colombians, we get so harmed, or like, when people don't eat the things as we used to. And it's not just Colombians. It happens in every country. I'm sure if I come with a German sausage, and I put it into arepas, still it would be like, what
Yeah,
are
yeah,
you
for
doing?
sure.
We all have this problem. We all think that our way of doing things is the only way, but no. What the things make is that it put ourselves like into a isolated space, like
Mm,
it segregate ourselves instead of making ourselves a part of something bigger. So I
yeah.
think the main word here is fusion, and I think that's the reason why it's so on trend. If you see, all the restaurants are Mexican fusion, Peruvian, Asian fusion, because things when they merge they get better. Because when we come together we get better, and sometimes it's harder to get into this point, and you just get into this point when you're alone,
Yeah.
when you find out that the only option that you have is to come along with someone else.
Mm,
So it's a process, and I think it's, for me, my the biggest lesson that I have gotten from all of this journey is that Eina can grow if you keep telling yourself, Eina is a Colombian brand. Eina is a Colombian brand. And then repeat. Yes, Eina is a Colombian brand, but it's something else. I can also work with people from Cadiz, from the south of Spain, and he's still Eina will be a Colombian brand.
yeah. 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 It's
It
not
doesn't
limited to.
it doesn't takes out from Eina. It gives, and it makes it better. It
Yeah.
makes it better. So, and I can say that in numbers. A bag that is made from Iraca palm is better valued when I add Spanish letter than when it comes alone. It's, again, as the example of the arepa.
Mm,
It comes better when you put an, as you said, a brie with onion on top, that when it comes alone. And not because arepa is plain or bad. No, because when you add something, it gives value. It doesn't take off from it.
I agree.
So I think this is my biggest like lesson from all these uh, years having my own brand.
Super, super interesting. And I think uh, I want to. There is so many questions that I have right now in my mind, but I think that two points that I want to give, and is the first one is I think that it takes because a lot of, as you mentioned, a lot of Latin Americans, when there are things that we see in other places that don't fit our mindset, and that happens not just with Latin Americans, everyone in the world, we get offended and we like. And I feel that is the same thing with an insecure person. Like if you are really secure of who you are,
Who you are?
other people can perceive it in other ways. But like
Yes.
sometimes we attach ourselves to certain things that are so irrelevant for the true identity of the things. And when you have a strong identity and you say like, okay, this is who I am, then you are more open to to grow, to experiment with other things.
Yes, I
uh,
agree. And also, I can, I don't know, I can push myself and say it, and is that this happens when you have never left and you leave for the first time.
mm,
And I have left for 3 times before, but it was my really first time that I was telling myself, "You're not coming back. Maybe I can come back in 10 years or tomorrow, but for now, you don't know when are you coming back."
mm,
So if it's like putting yourself into a risk, and it's like, or you detach to evolve, detach yourself to evolve, or you die.
yeah,
And you die, it means you stay in your comfort zone, talking to your very own close Colombian people from your own comfort zone. You're still talking to your friends daily because it's there all what you have, and living like a single person in a whole new country.
yeah,
Or you push yourself forward and say, okay, this is what I am. and I love myself so much that I know what I have to give to others, and I know what others can give me to make myself better. So
Definitely.
now I can say that I have best friends all around the world.
Mm.
I have my Turkish sister. I have my Moroccan one of my best friends. She's Moroccan. I have my now very very close Spanish friends. I have my best friends from childhood. I haven't. I didn't leave any of them. Now they're all in my life,
Mm.
and I understand that there's something in me, in my Colombian me, that they love.
Hmm.
And also, I can see so many things from them in me, in my new me, that I love too.
Yeah.
So it's this process of not leaving behind, but leaving the comfort zone behind.
Yeah.
So you can just do this when you are into
A difficult
a
path.
difficult situation. I think
Yeah.
that you have to say like, I evolve or I die, and I think it's the phrase always
Yeah.
evolve or die. So you choose evolution.
Yeah. I want
And
to extrapolate a lot this. I don't know if extrapolate is the right word, but I want to take like a zoom out of this conversation of Eirene and how you had these experiences of mixing with what is happening in Latin America, or what I perceive that is happening in Latin America, and that in some ways the idea of this podcast. And is, I think that right now, with the current situation of the world, in different regions, even what is happening internally in Latin America, right now we are in that moment. Right now we are in that moment where we can decide if we want to go bold and take our culture to other places and ensure ourselves, or we just want to remain
single.
what we are. And like, I'm not saying that is okay, I'm just saying that there is paths and opportunities. um so I want to take the experience and extrapolate it, like really big, and is Latin America right now is, from my perspective, in the perfect position to be the example of fusion for
Yes,
the world,
yes.
because we are by essence and by history
From our
fusion.
roots.
Is our roots, is what we are.
Yes. And
How we make it, what do you think that we need to do?
if we start from what you just said about of how we are, that's what we are starting from our history, and is, let's say that we have less than 10% of real native in our lands still.
Hmm.
Just Peru, Mexico, and let's say Bolivia still have a highest percent that can grow up to 40, from 40 to 60% of real native still living in their lands. But in our case, in Colombia, we remain 10%, and still we want to attach ourselves, ironically, to this name 10%, because still we don't really recognize ourselves as indigenous. But in words we want to recognize ourselves as, I mean, from words to the outside, we want to recognize ourselves as as a very ancient culture and indigenous culture, when we ourselves, we don't see ourselves like this,
True.
because we're
And
a creation of many many cultures that came to Colombia, and that came to many countries of Colombia during colonization and the years after. We're a little Spanish, we're a little French, we're a little Italians, we're a little Germans, we're a little indigenous, but we're a little bit
indigenous
of each of
Africans.
them, of Africans, but we're a little bit of each of them. So starting from this, we're already a fusion, a big fusion of cultures.
And if I may just compliment you, there is not just recognizing ourselves as a fusion, but also respecting each part, as you do with Eina.
Yeah,
Like, you respect each part, you respect the leather from Cadiz, the things that you do with the indigenous communities, the thing that you do with other kind of communities, is not that you ignore that those things exist, but you respect them all.
and give it and take the value that these things give to you,
Mm.
because they all give you value. And if you see the things, then you will recognize yourself as a big fusion, and this will help you step out of this like nationalism
Yeah,
or
it's
fake
really dangerous.
nationalism identity that you
Mm.
attach yourself to. But then you will be able to recognize what is the real identity of this nationalism that you want to keep and that makes you better.
Yeah,
So we yes, I think the big work here is to recognize ourselves, like the real, I know, the way we see our nationalism and how we can make the best of it
yeah.
and how
I,
it
I will
interact
I
with
will
us.
just change the word nationalism to
Yeah,
national identity because there is
national,
some
yeah,
semantics there.
national identity. I agree.
Mm, mm.
To
And
recognize
even
your own
identity as a
national
region,
identity. Yeah, as a
and even
region.
the identity as a region.
Yeah,
Okay,
agree.
so we have the first step,
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to take the example of the two of us in
Yeah.
our own experiences. So okay, we recognize ourselves in the differences that we are, the different journeys that we've had. Latin America, let's say, is a person is doing the same thing. Okay, let's say that we recognize ourselves.
Mm.
We want to expand our message. We want to send more Latins to the world. What is that next step that needs to happen?
I think they should recognize this fusion and see that if we are already a fusion, why cannot we? What is that keeps us from keeping evolving or getting together with other cultures? Why don't we do it if we're already fusioned? Let's say, I don't
Yeah,
know if this word exists, but like we're already merged. Why cannot we keep doing it if we are already a little bit of all? You
but I
know.
think,
So but
yeah,
to think, if you put it into like real things that you can do, go out on the streets, watch the people that is walking on the streets, ask them what are their real needs, what is that they like, what are the colors that make them feel wow. Because if you ask me, the colors that makes me feel wow are orange, pink, red, white. Yeah, even white. I love white like crazy. I can dress myself with white every day. And ask them, because maybe these colors that make them feel confident are brown, navy blue, gray, and some, maybe perhaps you can say, oh, but these are sad colors. No, these are the colors that make them feel good. So
and it's
give
related to
yourself.
their iconography that you were mentioning.
Exactly, is what they see. Actually, I saw a video from Stockholm of a girl telling this. In Stockholm, we dress as the weather that we see every day,
Yeah,
gray weather or even white weather.
during 6 months.
Yeah,
But then you see them in the summer, and
and
there
they use
is,
everything. Swedish people, they dress, or people from Denmark.
oh, that's
Denmark
another.
fashion is crazy. It's amazing.
But yeah, let's come back. Let's come
But
back.
let's come back
Let's leave the
to
Danish
Colombia.
in their own journey. So
Yeah.
I,
So
I
the
I
thing,
want to relate it again to your
I
journey,
I
and
think that
is,
the point is people have to be able to listen
yeah, and I
and
think
feel.
that I want to relate it again to your journey
Mm.
because it's uh, Eirene recognizing her identity was that Eirene that went to the communities, that was doing research, that was understanding the different journeys, that was really passionate about helping. But then there was the Irene that
Became
went out there
entrepreneur.
and went to Turkey, and then went to Italy, and then created her brand. So like those steps are covered.
And
What
where
is the next step?
it was hard, even.
Of course, of course.
I was not recognizing myself as entrepreneur. I was recognizing myself as a researcher.
Okay.
So to recognize myself as an entrepreneur, I think was the hardest thing, because it's related of with coming out of your comfort zone and being able to listen to what it's outside. So I think this step as entrepreneur really shaped myself a lot,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
before I was like into my very like own space, reading, looking, making, not thinking a lot of what was going on outside. But since I became an entrepreneur with my own brand, I understood that there's many other things that I wanted to explore, really explore, not just in the little things in daily basis, in the daily life, but outside of my daily life and outside of like my comfort zone. So this is when comes my next step, and is I found out that I really love to represent what you want to say through clothes. This was something that I really loved since I was very little. I always loved to dress a lot. I was always choosing my own clothes since I was 4 years old. I knew that the dresses that my mother was buying to me were not the dresses that represented me. So I was, since very young, I was able to know like clothes are a way of telling the people who you are. So my next step is to get stronger in this.
Yeah.
I want to work more with the identity of the language of the identity.
Yeah, and I will connect it again with what we were saying that Latin America needs to do. So first, we need to identify ourselves, as Eirene
Yeah.
did in her journey. Then we need to get out there. We need to be brave enough to get out there and explore new things. Then I love that you recognize yourself after getting out there, because you need to see on
Yeah.
the other people's eyes and how they relate. And after that, it comes the representation.
Yeah.
After that journey, and I think that is similar to what we can do as a region.
Yeah, a way of coming together. I think it's
Exactly.
the great conclusion. It's understanding that at the end, I mean, we're all living here and co-living all together in the same space. So we cannot pretend to keep being ourselves and be like stubborn is the way, is the
Yeah,
word,
stubborn.
like this is how I am and this is the only way of doing things. But we should start like going out of our comfort zone, be able to listen to people. I think this is the hardest and is the most important thing. Being
Yeah.
able to be empathic and get to feel what others are feeling and why people are taking the decisions that they are taking. And I think if we make these steps now going bigger, many of the world problems will be solved. But we are a stubborn human race. We all think that what we all do is the right way of doing things, but we're so unable to listen to others, to be on others' shoes, to understand why people take other decisions. We're so close to this, where we don't want to do it, and this is what sometimes make us live in a small group. This is what isolate us from any other opportunities, and at the end make us not grow our business or what we're doing.
Yeah, of we as people. And I think that Latin America is meant to do that, I feel. Latin America
of
is
course, because
set
we're
and is
already a
meant to do
fusion.
that. Exactly.
I mean,
Like, there are other places, like I think there are other places in the world, Turkey being one of them, that or India, that they have also this part of
and
fusion.
through
But
their
in the
fusion.
current context, the perception of the people in Latin America is a really interesting way to do
We
that.
have a very beautiful way of being, and I think this is what we should focus on. We should not focus on I want to speak like this because this makes me Colombian. No, what makes us Colombian, because I can't just talk about Colombia, because even if I have Mexican friends or people that I know, I cannot talk about Latin America as a whole. But something that we have beautiful as Colombians is that we are open people. We are fun people. We are people that we love to come together with others. So if we use this as an ally in our process, I think we're ready to show the rest of the world what we really have. And mostly and most important things, we're people that we're passionate.
Yeah.
And we fight like lions for what we want. Once we have an idea, there's no one ever stopping us.
Yeah.
It's like we go for it. And when I think we should be able to see this in our culture and leave behind these stupid things, like, I'm sorry for the word.
That's okay.
Like, I'm Colombian because I eat arepa. Yes, dude. You're Colombian because you eat arepa and because of many other things. Which are the other things? Go into yourself and find out. And when you find out, you will be able to give it to the rest of the world, and then you will be able to correlate, cooperate, co-work, and then make bigger things. And I think this is something that we should also learn from the country that we're both living in. Continent. But because Europe is a one big continent, and they already understood it. So
yeah, different contexts. They had, of course, different conditions.
They have a political structure that made them understand it.
And a gross history of going and taking resources from other people.
Yeah, I agree, but they already get it.
Yeah. It's the new way of doing it.
Yeah.
We are running out of time, so I just don't want to leave the podcast without a couple of recommendations for the people.
Otra vez. This is the recommendations.
Yeah, with a couple of recommendations for the people that want to get to know more about Latin America. Because as you know, like, of course, we want to talk with Latin Americans, and we know that it's likely that this space is going to be heard by Latin Americans, but the second purpose of this space is that in some lean shopping here in Sweden, or in Valencia, or in Saint-Étienne in France, there is a person that is, I want to know more about Latin America, and I think that a couple of good recommendations will be good. So if choose 3 things, it can be a brand, it can be a song, it can be a book, it can be a movie, 3 things that you would like someone else that is starting to get to know Latin America to explore.
Oof. I don't want to be typical in this.
That doesn't matter.
But I should say, go into. I mean, really go deep into Latin America. I think, of course, due to our security situation, sometimes we cannot go very deep. But if someone really have the chance to go deep with a tourist guide or someone that knows the way, or yes, someone who knows the place, to go into the indigenous community and when you do this, take off your hat of citizen or urban person and put on the hat of indigenous person, and you will be crazy of how much you can learn. I think living with the Wayu people was for me a before and after. I think I was not so open-minded as I am right now before living with them. Okay. I remember telling my mother the second because I could talk to my parents like after the first week of living there. My parents didn't know if I was alive, if I was not alive. Not recommended. This was risky because at the end, indigenous, they have their own law. No one's in police, military forces, they don't come inside of their communities. So this was risky, but still, I wanted to take the risk. And I remember telling my mother, like, I feel like I like if I've just died and I like reborn in a new body, in an indigenous woman, an indigenous body. Like I'm an indigenous woman now. It was so crazy. It was like I'm an animal again. I can eat what lands give me. I'm not hungry anymore. Like all my like body was changed, and
Your
like to
identity.
me it was amazing. So if you really want to get to know Latin America, go into
Latin
indigenous
America.
communities. Yeah.
For sure. There is like that is a big recommendation, and of course it takes an effort for a person to do it. Is there any other recommendation that you would like perhaps to people that are just curious, that maybe want to take that first step?
Visit Eiina brand.
For sure.
We bring a lot of our culture. We bring at the end a nice design with artisans, with indigenous, and I think this is a big part of knowing our culture, and is knowing the material culture. So.
Definitely. And we will leave the link of Eiina brand in the description of the podcast. Okay. My dear Eirene, thank you so much for this space. We have talked a lot. There is, of course, a lot of questions that we cannot include. We could, you know, that you and me, we could talk during 6 hours and not run out of topics. But unfortunately, this is a space that have a time limit. So
and
I just
I'm
want
sorry
to thank you so much.
I was too long in some answers.
That's totally okay. But thank you so much for the space, and I wish you the best. Hope to see you soon, and the best for Eiina.
Thank you all for listening, and thank you, Les, for having me. It was such an honor. It was my first podcast, and I will remember it. I will remember it forever. Bye.